Most of my acquaintances and my friends call me Tomboy. And I've lived here all my life. And I didn't, I finished high school.
What year?
And I think that was 1945.
What high school did you attend?
It was Hebert High School then. And it was, at that time we had, I think we had Hebert and it had Charlton Pollard, which was a black school, and Martin was the three. We had three high schools in this area when I when I graduated, and it was a pretty good sized class, 38 people, and I played in the band when I was in school. I was in the band, played trombone, and played a couple of years of basketball. And that was about, I never was very well sports oriented. And I'm married. I have 6 children. And have about, the latest count I think was 16 grandchildren. and great grandkids, I think that's at 25, 30 somewhere now. And I married my wife Loretta. She was a Briscoe. We graduated together. We both went to the same school. And I'm 88 years old. And
so when were you born?
1928.
And that was here in Beaumont?
In Beaumont. Mm-hmm.
So where did you grow up in Beaumont?
Right in this neighborhood, right here in the Beaumont, Texas, what we call the Pear Orchard.
And so did the Pear Orchard, was it mostly black people on this side of town? Or?
No, ma'am, it wasn't mostly black, it was all black. We, and I grew up in a totally black community. We, at that time, probably knew everybody by name who lived in the community. We, the church was down the street from us. I was originally brought up in the Catholic Church as to be an altar boy, and I didn't like it. And I asked my daddy, did I have to, because my mother was Catholic and my dad was Protestant. So he said, go where you want to go. And I joined over here in West Tabernacle, and that's where I've been all my life, right in this one spot. And all my kids was raised up in the church. They've spread out all over the place, but we all just born and raised here. They went to school here.
So when you were in school, you said you didn't play sports, but do you remember any sports games played against white teams, or?
When I graduated, when I was in school, it was black schools competing against black schools. Wasn't no such thing as because we had a rivalry with the black school with Charlton Pollard, with Wallace in Orange, and Lincoln in Port Arthur. It was black in the Scholastic, yeah.
And so you graduated a couple of years after the race riot here in Beaumont. Do you remember that?
I remember the race, some of the race riots. The as a matter of fact, my father-in-law was one of the black auxiliary policemen in the city of Beaumont when that happened, and he came home. They pulled him off the street the night that race riot took place, and sent him and the other rest of the black policemen back, sent them home. And he came home and he said, told us, he said something's going on, he said something wrong, so they sent us all home and told us to go home. It wasn't going to be a good night to be on the streets, and mass communication wasn't like it is now. And later on in the night, early in the morning, we heard we heard the old folks moving around and a lot of stuff going on. And then they said it was a race riot. Then we began to see all of them, my daddy and all the rest of them getting their shotguns and all their guns and their stuff, and getting ready for it. I remember when they were lined up along the railroad tracks with guns and stuff, waiting for anybody white to with hostile group to come in, and it never evolved to that in our community, as far as I know. There was a lot of destruction downtown. Some of the black businesses there was pretty well beaten up. I was at that point in age, in that time where youngsters didn't interfere with what old black folks was talking about. We just gleaned a lot of it from what we heard. Because we were still young, right out of high school or right in high school at that point. And but it was interesting. Yeah.
What did you? So you said that you didn't interfere, but you did learn or hear of some other things that happened after the riot, or maybe even did you hear about how people felt about it?
Oh well, we heard them talking, and there was a lot of anger and the fear, and I remember I was no, not that. Afterwards, I was some folk downtown and in the Crockett Street area was talking about how they had to hide under the beds and other things like that when the mobs come running through the house and things like that. But we didn't witness any of that in my area, in my section of town. It was relatively safe here.
So while you were growing up, did you have any interactions with white people or even Mexican American people?
Oh yeah. We had my mother was washing and ironing for some white folks, what we call South Park, and before we would go to school, and we didn't ride the bus, we walked to school. The bus would pass by us, taking white kids from one area to the other area, but we had to walk. And but I would go with her and help put the water in the tubs and help hang up the clothes and stuff like that. And it's a matter of fact, in my senior year, graduating, I was at I can't think of the folks' names. They live over there off of Highland Avenue, and I played with the kids and all the stuff. And I had my books with me when I went to that particular day. And some of the girls, one of the girls grabbed hold of books and they was looking at it and going through the book, and they said, and I was in the 12th grade, and she said, this is the book we used in the 11th grade last year, and they had the names in the book, and that I think triggered something in me because began to look around, and I found out the little bit that I could find out is that all the kids had books that was hand me down, even to the point, even that some of our band uniforms, we had band uniforms, and the football gears and stuff like that. They were handing us down from South Park. They used them at the white school, which was South Park, and the black school had to use a lot of this stuff. I remember when I went out for the football. I was going to try to play football, and I had a helmet that I was wearing, and it was a hand-me-down helmet, and it was so worn out, it tore up all my neck in practice, and Mama made me quit playing football. She wouldn't let me go because she said it was too rough for me because I came home with all tore up like that. But we we survived through it. Yeah, but it was sometime going to work. I mean, going over there with Mama and coming back. Sometime I would be you'd have some white kids that would give us a hard time, and we had to run from across there a lot of days, but in general the whites were wasn't mean. But they had a way of letting you know that you were not equal to them, and it irritated some of us, but when I got going to school here, we had a bunch of fights and stuff like that as kids walking to school, going to school. So we didn't think about, some of us didn't think about what was happening to us as being mean, because it was kids. I never witnessed or was a victim of any nasty ill treatment going through and for out of that area by white folks. They would, some of them would talk to you nasty, stuff like that, but it was almost a written thing. You knew you didn't go in South Park and act up. I did not go and walk through the streets in South Park as I would here. No. That's it. And I go did my little chore, and they had several stores over there that I guess we could. I never really thought about it now until we're talking now. After I grew up and married and things got differently, I met some of those things, but as a child, no. And I don't know if all of it was race related, or it was just the way we were brought up as children. Because when we were brought up, the kids didn't get in conversation when grown folks was talking. You didn't sit in the room when grown folks was talking. No way in the world I could have survived in my grandmother's house the way with some of these kids interfere today. They just don't know. Yeah. But it was interesting.
Mm. Do you remember your parents talking to you about race or issues?
Yeah, we heard it, but some of us, I maybe in particular, it didn't impact me at the same because as a child, Washington Boulevard, I don't know when you came in, I couldn't cross over Washington Boulevard. And my parents prohibited that. There were black folks who live across there. And then when I came up, they looked at some of us in this neighborhood as being poor black folks. And when you went down Houston and some of those other areas of where black folks lived, the doctors and the pharmacists and whatever, they looked at them differently. And
so who looked at what?
Black folks
looked at
yeah,
different classes of
right,
black people
yeah,
differently based on the neighborhood?
yeah. We had a class system in ourselves, yeah. And we had this area where black folks lived. Then you had the South End, where you had a lot of black folks. Then you had downtown, where you had a few blacks, and then you get on the North End. They have a lot of blacks. The blacks were scattered in 3 different areas. In the North End and the South End, which was really the East, was a black portion of the town, and over in here was a black area. And you had more plant workers and construction workers that I could recognize from this area than you did from the South End, and so we had our own little class system, yeah.
So the Pear Orchard was very working class, would you say?
Yeah.
And then the North End and South End were more professional?
And yeah, I think you had. I don't know what I think most of the black doctors and those folks resonated from that area. As not as many as I don't know how that, those things get set up, and I never did. I don't know how it exists. How was it created, or anything like that? I do know that there was some girls in certain other parts of town. Their parents would get upset with them if they was courting a boy from the parish. And back there is that because those are the kind of things that we would relate to from our level, because the interrelationship facing that you have today, we didn't have that in our community. You didn't question. Your daddy said do this, you didn't question why. You got it done, and or you get a half killing. Yeah.
Let's see. So what did your dad do for work? Was he?
He was a refinery worker.
Okay, and where did he work?
The Mobile Oil. It was the Magnolia Refinery at that time. Yeah.
Do you know if he was involved in a union?
Oh yeah, he was a union man. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what do you remember about his union involvement?
Well, Daddy and a fellow named Robert Myrick, who lived up there off on Cartwright up there by the Sprouts Hospital. And there's a couple of 3 others. I knew those folks because they came by the house. There were some others that was just as antagonizing as they were, but I don't know them because that, as I said, is some things I'm trying to relate to some things in the area that you asked the question in. As I grew older, and the system began to change, I had a more intimate relationship with these men and these folks, and I saw things in a little different light. But at that particular time, we didn't see that. But Daddy and Robert Myrick and Oak C. Hebert and some of the names might come back to me. That's why that I can't, because they used to come by the house and they would sit in the garage and I could I could hear them talking about some of the things that was believed. Daddy was an OCAW man. He believed in it, just like O.C. Hebert, who was a strong fighter for black rights. I don't know if you run across his name in all of this, and his brother. Can't think of his brother name because we called him Big Hebert. And there was 2 or 3 others that was strong in the Union, and we have the Union to thank the Union for what it did, because it gave us the support and gave us the backbone what we needed to fight the inequities that existed here. And but yes, that was I remember them talking when Daddy bought a car. And they came by the house and they told me, said, Mo, you know you can't drive that car to work. Well, and Daddy said, the hell if I can't. You see, why not? Because white folks would tear them up. While you go in the yard was working, anything could happen to your vehicle. They had black folks working at the refinery, wouldn't park their car at the refinery. They'd park it a few blocks down from the refinery and get out and go to work and then come back and get their cars, because that was the hostility that they had to deal with the union. I mean with the plant. That's the union not only, in my opinion, gave them an opportunity to get some equity in salaries and better jobs with it, but it also gave them another level of protection that they didn't have to skin and grin that like a lot of folks expected them to. But but Daddy and Robert Myrick and O.C. and 2 or 3 of those others, they drove their cars on the yard and said, make it clear, that's my car. Now let something happen to it, somebody's going to answer. And Daddy didn't bother anybody, but he's what I appreciated about from everybody I talked to, when he gave you his word, you could depend on it. And I think that's relative to my whole family. That's embedded in us. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, while the times that you heard them talking, did you ever hear? So you mentioned getting their cars damaged, possibly.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear anything about fights?
Oh yeah.
At work? Or?
Oh yeah. You see, they had at that time had separate bathrooms, and I don't know even if they had a bathhouse for black folks at that time. I don't know, because I wasn't privy to it. But I do know they would piss in or urinate in the water fountains where the blacks had to drink, and it was all kind of little mischievous, because I don't care how good most of your society is. You got some bad apples there. And they knew most times somebody know where those bad apples are. You see, it's like I'm getting ahead of myself here, but it's something I need to say because I don't want to forget it. But there's a lot of uproar now about the police brutality and the unconscious killing, and what they're telling us, the public, what we're going to have to do, how we need to make some changes. But somebody needs to root out that element that exists in the police department because they got some rotten apples in there. They know where those rotten apples are, and they need to go in and not merely have to do the public have to make a change. They're gonna have to make a change because that's in almost any segment that you get into. That there's going to be, and some of them call it child playing, just kid stuff, but there's some black resentment almost in any situation that you get to, and some of it is subtle, and some of it is blatant. You've run across it. See, it's there, and then there's a lot of mischievousness in our own people. They could create some problems. Even with one another. Yeah.
You talked about class divisions earlier.
Yeah.
Within the black community.
Yeah. And I think it's just a mock-up of the white community, because the same thing that was felt about us as black, it was felt about white folks by other white folks. Because as I grew up and got older, and I realized what was going on, other white folks it's just like up there off of Franklin and Avenue A and Orange and Pennsylvania and back up in there. You got some big old white houses that some middle-class whites used to live in. But they were looking at whites in South Park as poor white trash. See, so some of it just mimicked what the culture in the system had was producing. Yes. So we really can't iron it down. I mean, I don't know how to weed it out. It just exists.
Well, since you started with police brutality, I want to ask: do you remember issues with police brutality here in Belmont while you were growing up?
Well, yeah. We and like I said, when I grew up in this neighborhood here, right down the street from where we are now, where we're sitting, that was a big old place they called Bailey's Hall. It was a big hall that they had there. There was a hotel, and there was a juke joint. They had a bar in there, the grocery store in there, and they had a little of everything in it. But it was also a place where they assembled, and they had, huh?
Who assembled? Who assembled?
Who else?
Who assembled there?
Oh, the men, the old men, the grown men. And see, and something that I grew up with in this community, they had some folks like old man Gus Hebert and old man Clint Blanchard and old man Bailey and Tappan and those men were almost a pillar of the community. Police for a long time wouldn't come into this neighborhood. What they would do if they had a relationship, so that if they had to arrest somebody from here, some of those men that I knew, that I called, they let them know, pick him up. And they would have, all they had to do is come down and pick him up. And say, we don't want him beat up, just take him up. And I think there was one white policeman that would come in this neighborhood, Ray Yaw, that I could remember now. Remember, I'm limited to how much I could, because they just that was a level that, unless you were of age, you couldn't get to it, and you had to respect the rights of the elders. But and when those men told you to come in, whatever you did, they chastised their own in the community. We didn't have a lot of. We had a lot of infighting amongst one another. But it wasn't anything to the degree that we were killing off one another. Nothing like that. You had to call the law. We were able to take care of a lot of it ourselves. that I could remember. But as we got older and conditions changed, you see, because when I came up as a child, and I grieve over this right now, we didn't have a Lincoln Terrace till I was grown when they had that apartment complex during the war that they put up over there.
And this is a public housing
A housing project, yeah. And but we had grocery stores all over the place here, and they competed with one another. Nobody fought. Had beauty parlors, had barber shops, had juke joints. They had clubs. They had something to, and there was a lot of that kind of activity that went on in the community. And you had businesses that we had in our community. That's gone now. You don't have anything, and what it has called, I think what it has helped create too is the fact that we got a bunch of young men just sit around on the corner, just sitting and have the streets all blocked up. But you ask why they don't have those places to go that in the community like we came up with. We might not have harbored them that much, but there's certain elements that did, and they were not an obstruction to the community because they were all among their peers, and they did those things among themselves.
What do you think happened? What do you think caused those changes?
Integration, we gravitated over to those places that was open, and we in some kind of way, and that's part of. But the rest I can't tell you because I talked with some of our fellows. We talk about we don't have something got to develop with us. We're the only race of people that I know of that don't seem to cater to one another. We don't do business with one another. Too many of us in business is abusive about our business, and too many of us, for some reason, and we don't see it. Right now, I can take you, just go down College Street here. From College Street, from MLK to I-10, there are more Hispanic businesses in that one area than we got black businesses all over Beaumont. But for some reason, there's a little grocery store here that we had now by the apartment complex that I was referencing to again. The man got old and his wife, and they got out of the business. There's the Vietnamese opened up a nail shop there. I went there just to get my nails done. I want to see what was going on. They're doing business. I didn't see a Vietnamese come in that place. But we just flocking in. Why couldn't we do something like that? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get off on. But that grieves me is the fact that we just won't do business with one. And there's some of us. I've had some come do some work for me, and what they charged me was atrocious for what they did. I was overcharged. I knew it. It was abuse, and I tried to say, you got to change your habit, man. It's just not. I was in the radio and TV repair business. I did that for a living for a long time, and and I guess the Lord just blessed me when I was successful, but it tried to treat people fair. But then there was always somebody who thought you was not. We look for something for nothing. We figure because we're black, you should do it for me and cut the price. And then that too many of us overcharge because it's black. But going back, I'll give you your program back.
No, you're fine. Well, I feel like this is a good time to ask you about something that you said before. In most of our interviews, especially with black people, and even with some of the Mexican Americans that we've interviewed, there's this sentiment, like you explained before, you don't go into adult conversations if you're a child.
Yeah.
That was part of the culture.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe your generation missed out on some things that older people did because they didn't let you in on the secrets or tell you what was going on?
I never thought about it. Because it worked for me. And matter of fact, I came in and made some of the imposition on my children. How I was raised. And I look back now, and I regret that there are some things that I didn't advocate to them. I never envisioned. Well, it was a long time before I did, because we had to fight for it. It was a struggle trying to get equity, and but it, yeah. Okay, where you want to go?
I want to go back to, just briefly, what you were saying about Vietnamese and Mexican Americans in businesses. First, when do you remember, or can you recall, when Vietnamese people or Mexican Americans began to settle in Beaumont in larger numbers?
Well, no, the Hispanic has always been here. But I think and their culture is so much different from ours. You can get, they work together, you can get 15 of them who will stay in one house. When I got married, I left the refinery. I worked with a contractor out there, and then I found a job at an oil field supply house, and I went to work there. And strange as it might seem, it bordered an area that was strong Hispanic in that particular area where I worked.
What side of town would that be?
That was in the middle. That was almost in the middle town. It was in the. That was. Yeah.
And when did you start there?
Let's see. I got married. I graduated in 45, and must have been about 47. I went to work there in 1947 or something like that, because I was working there when I got married, and I was treated fairly there, and and I got a good income, and it was a chain company, and most of the folks was from out of town that came in. So it wasn't a bad job. It's just that at one time a white boy told me, he said, you ought to be the boss over there. You ought to be the manager. You know so much about that. But they treat, and the customers that we had came in. I didn't have any. I didn't run into any racial problems on my job. Later on, as the time went by, my political involvement created some problems on the job. But initially, it was everything went well with the job. At that particular time, I was I wasn't long before I had some children, and I was active in the community. I don't know why. It's just that we was encouraged to vote. Daddy insisted that we voted, and when we got of age to pay that 75 cents for the poll tax, we bought it and we voted. And when they went up on it, we still paid for it. And I got a part of the. I went to Blanchette School. I mean, my kid was in Blanchette School, and I was pleased with some things going on. So they wind up and hooked me and made me president of the Blanchette School PTA. That's why I kind of got my foot wet.
When did you become president of the PTA?
I can't remember the exact year, but it was somewhere back there. And I thought about it after talking to you, and I didn't know exactly what you was going to want to hear. And that was one of the it had always been a sore spot to me, the inequity in the school system, and my father-in-law would he was involved in the political. Well, he would go to meeting, and the NAACP was was in its infancy, but you had some folks like O.C. Hebert and old man, we call him Uncle Bud, the man who used to cut my hair, my barber. He was a NAACP man to the core, and they were and sitting around in the barbershop in those places with them. I constantly heard some of the stuff that was going on, and it made me realize that there was some problems all over the place, and and when we would learn, I think when I was in my last 2 years in high school, I played on the basketball team, and when we went to the state, won the district and went to the state playoff, I was so disgusted. Where we went to, well, it wasn't a state, it was a tournament. When we we won the district, and we had those little 99-cent jackets, looked like clowns, and Charlton Pollard, the black school over from across town, they came in at Prairie View the same time we did, we had to play them, and they fell out with those beautiful satin, silk blue and white uniforms, tennis, and all over the whole. And I look at us, and it angered me to see that that we had South Park had the financial tax base, because the plants was in the refineries, which more of them was in the South Park district than it was. And the South Park and the white kids, as a rule, we were getting hand-me-downs. And then if they bought us something new, they bought the cheapest thing that they could buy. And so I was angry, but with my parents and still there until I got out, I was still restrained, because they still run the house. And when I got married, got on my own and started going and get in the PTA, and I saw some of the things that was, and I can't remember a lot of it because it was just a bunch of, and we started fighting, going to school board meeting, going to the superintendent and fighting for to get these things. And they had it was just obvious. The books, sometimes we would get a book and we get to a page and the page is gone out of it. Or something would just scratch through and you wouldn't know what because looked like the white kids knew those books were going to be passed down to us, or they just was just bad. I really, not being privileged to their society, I don't know if there was just mischievousness on their part or what, but I think they knew those books were going to be handed down to us. And we got angry, and I couldn't understand why nobody wasn't doing anything. So when we started, we had some folks in the PTA working with me, and all they needed was somebody that would lead the fight, and we started fighting for equity in the system. And as I began to get into this thing and to look into it deeper, I found out that our hurt from the elementary area wasn't as bad as it was when you got into the upper grades, because if there were some courses that some of our kids couldn't go to school for to be doctors and some of those kind, because some of the courses that you needed to have taken in the high school level wasn't given here. Western folks had to go to Charlton Pollard to graduate to go to med school, because we didn't have a chemical lab and chemistry and some other things that they needed, and they had it at the other black school. So I began to make a little noise, and then somewhere in the 50s, and I got enough attention that a bond issue came up for the South Park School District, and I wrote a letter. They sent some pamphlets out and everything, even to get us to support it, and that's what triggered me off into the. I was grown then. I was a man. I had children. I was able to make decisions for myself.
I want to ask quickly before we move off from this. So you said that at Hebert High School, there were some classes that weren't offered at all.
That's right.
If a student who attended Hebert needed to go to Charlton Pollard to take those classes to study science or math or
That's
medicine,
correct.
how would they get there? Would they bus them? How would their parents have to make sure they got there?
The parents just got them there. There were no buses for us because we all had to walk to school here. And to be honest with you, I don't know how they got there. I never. We knew that they were going over there, and it was. Let's see. Othello and some of them others there is dead now. I don't know, Tobe and all that bunch who would know how that happened. I don't know, because you had kids right across from here, right across Washington. They went to Charlton. I don't know how they got there.
And how far?
Oh, that was hell, that's a long way to cross where they are to get to Charlton. I don't know how they got to school.
So you're saying that with these courses not being offered and there not being a plan that you know of to get students to where they could take them, obviously black students were already at a disadvantage for going to a career they wanted to, if they wanted to pursue college.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At that time, when you graduated and when you had your kids in schools and you became involved at Blanchett, do you know if a lot of black students around here went to college, or the majority? What did that, or even trade schools, or what did that look like after they graduated?
Well, let's see. I go back to my class. Let's see. There wasn't, I think 38 of us in the class, and maybe 10 of us went to college. And so I don't know. And the class, Elwin's Hotel, and then when they might have had more big. They went to Texas College up there. I don't know. Yeah.
So what did you do after you graduated in 1945? And you told me about some of your jobs.
Yeah, I went to the National Supply Company, and that's where I stayed until I got laid off.
And when was that?
And that was in 50 and 60. And I saw it coming because they offered me a transfer to, but my wife didn't want to go to Denver. I could have went to Denver. I could have went to somewhere in Louisiana, and she didn't want to go, and we stayed here. But what happened was, I saw that they were laying off all around me in the company, and looked like most of the guys, and they were all white. I was only black, and the most of the guys that had been laid off were ones without a college education. So I just surmised they were using that as a criteria to start laying off, and I knew eventually they would get to me. So I got in with a cousin of mine and enrolled into a radio and television corresponding class. And before I got laid off, I had finished, had my shop, had got in the shop, and was doing that at night. And of course I was active in at that point I was active in the school politics. It had gotten into the city politics at that time. And when I wrote this letter to the editor, it opened up the floodgates when they printed it, and because what I did expose some of the inequity and what in the buildings aspect of the whole thing.
Can we pause just for a moment?
Mm-hmm.